And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Harrison Timms, who writes, "Hey, John. So, I was reading an article that said there is a dispute going on between John Krasinski and his wife Emily Blunt against Paramount over money for A Quiet Place 2. Apparently, they're getting paid based on how much the movie makes in theaters, but Paramount later shrunk the theatrical window from 90 days to 45 days, which will affect how much they make. How serious could this get, and will it affect other movie deals? Thanks." Okay, thanks a lot for saying that in, Harrison. And of course, you guys know how I feel about A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place in 2018 was my number one favorite film of the year. It was my number one best film of the year. And even though everybody likes A Quiet Place, I still think it's underrated. That's how good I think it is. And what John Krasinski was able to do with much of the film not even having dialogue, the way he was able to utilize atmosphere and tension and the visuals, and it was just beautifully, wonderfully done. And I have been stoked as hell about seeing this new one. And by the way, Skylar Hillman sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. But of course, this was a movie that was supposed to come out a long time ago. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for it. They just put out a new trailer. But Rob, along the way, he's right. They did introduce a 45-day window. Instead of putting the movie out in theaters for 90 days, it's only going to be out in theaters for 45 days before they move it over to streaming. Yep. Now, on some level, we could say, so what? But when you're somebody like John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, where you specifically signed your deal, where a lot of the money that you're going to make on this deal is dependent on what it makes at the box office. And now, after you sign that deal, they slash in half how long the movie's even going to play in theaters. That is going to affect you, if you're John Krasinski or Emily Blunt or somebody like that in that position. That's going to affect how much money you're going to make. And it can become an issue. This comes to us from the folks over at Cinema Blend who write, "Some major stars sign contracts with studios to receive back-end paychecks on their movies depending on how the movie does in theaters. And A Quiet Place 2's writer, director, producer, and star John Krasinski reportedly has one with Paramount alongside the film's lead, of course his wife, Emily Blunt. However, since the studio decided it will move the movie to its new streaming service, Paramount Plus, just 45 days after opening day, the husband and wife are allegedly asking for compensation, per Bloomberg's report. The couple, along with one of the movie's other producers, Michael Bay, have been seeking compensation for this decision, but Paramount has declined their request." Now, this is interesting because it brings up a scenario that we talk about a lot. Personally, unless movie actors are willing to give back their salary when a movie flops, I don't personally feel like movie actors are entitled to bonuses when the movie's a hit. You get paid and you get paid well, and that's that. But sometimes for a studio who may not want to pay, like let's say, I'm going to pull a number out of my ass here, Rob, just for argument's sake. But let's say John Krasinski, his going rate is $7 million to be in a movie. But the studio's like, we're not sure the movie's going to do so well. So I'll tell you what, John, how about we give you $4 million instead of $7, but we'll build it into your contract that you can get points on first dollar if it makes money. So you could make way more than your regular $7 million asking price, but we get to protect ourselves by only guaranteeing you 4. So what do you think? Those circumstances can be pretty beneficial, Rob, both for the studio and for the actor. But what happens when you are Emily Blunt or John Krasinski and you, in good faith, when the understanding is it's going to have a 90-day window and then it's going to get put out onto some kind of streaming service, and Paramount pulls a move by saying, well, you know what? We're going to cut that window in half and then we're going to put on Paramount. And you're John Krasinski and Emily Blunt saying, wait a minute, time out. The whole reason we took the base salary that we did is because you said we were going to get X number of dollars for it playing in theaters this long, and now you're cutting in half. So I'll tell you what, that's fine, Paramount, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are saying, but you need to give us some extra money since you're taking away what we were supposed to be making our money from. And apparently Paramount is saying no. This, Rob, could get very ugly. This could get very ugly. Now, it also could be resolved within a matter of days, and Paramount finally says, okay, Emily, John, we're going to sign you a check for $2 million more. Here you go. Maybe yes, maybe no. But this could become a very serious legal battle if it gets that far. And again, there's only a certain percentage chance that it does. But Rob, you're looking at this situation. Actors sign in good faith to say, we'll only take X amount of salary, but we want back-end points. And then the studio cuts the theatrical window in half, limiting how much money they could make. I don't know, Rob, what's your take on this whole thing?
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up. But, I always say, John, that in Hollywood or in any walk of life, that you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And obviously, when they made A Quiet Place 2, they already had a premiere for A Quiet Place 2 pre-pandemic. So the movie's been done. When they made the movie, they didn't know there was going to be a global pandemic. But it doesn't matter. If you've signed a contract, the studio is obligated to pay off on that contract. And it is not unusual for directors and a lot of above-the-line talent, especially the actors or a director or a writer, they get box office bumps that are built into the performance of the film. It's pretty industry standard. If they make a movie that if it makes more than 100 million or 200 million or 300 million, there are box office bonuses based on that. It's an industry standard, really, especially for people who have made a previous successful film in a franchise. So what has been happening, it's not just here with A Quiet Place 2. Legendary got upset when Warner Brothers just decided that, we're going to put movies on our streaming service, HBO Max, day and date with movies coming out in theaters. And no one knew what that was going to look like. I mean, obviously, it worked out okay for Godzilla versus Kong, but it's something that was untried. And the studios are making these decisions without consulting the talent involved with the making of these movies. Now, I get it. All the studios want to promote their streaming services. But, Warner Brothers headed off that pass because they gave both Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot $10 million each for Wonder Woman 84 before the movie came out as compensation. They said, okay, we understand there's box office bumps built in. We're trying something different. So to appease our star and our talent, they did that as a preemptive measure. And that seemed to placate everybody, and that was all good. But in this case, Paramount literally cuts in half the potential. I mean, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And when people like John Krasinski creates a franchise like this, and by all, I mean, any review that came out after the premiere and the trailers, this movie looks to be a huge hit. And it looks like it's going to outgross, based on what we've seen so far, its predecessor. So a box office bump can mean literally millions of dollars to the two of them, and they're married. So I think par for the course. I mean, anybody is not going to sit there and say, look, oh, sure, just do what you want. Let's cut our theatrical window by half. I mean, obviously, as a movie plays, there's diminishing returns, and it's not going to be, obviously, movies' earnings are front loaded, but as this rolls out internationally and things like that, does that mean the international rollout worldwide? I mean, if you think about it, the first Quiet Place outgrossed its international earnings, but unless it's day and date worldwide, they could lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
And no one went to them and said, listen, can you help us out? We're trying to build our new streaming service. I mean, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt don't care. Like, when we made a deal, we're not here to support your new streaming service. We're here to support our work and the contracts that we've signed with you. So it's not about whether or not we're supportive or team players. It's academic. Here's the contract we signed. You need to make good on this contract. That means you don't curtail our earning potential and cut it in half. It's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. And something's going to have to I'll be honest with you, Rob. I'm completely surprised Paramount doesn't see this. And when Krasinski and Blunt just went to them and said, okay, all right, you did this, so pay us what those extra 45 days probably would have been worth. Just cut us a check and we'll call it a day. And Paramount has said no. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing turns out. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this little turn of events? Who do you think's in the right? Personally, I think it's clear that it's Blunt and Krasinski. They're clearly in the right. They deserve to get paid. I mean, this is not what they signed up for. It is different from the deal that they had. Paramount is trying to play legal. What do you guys think about this? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.